Okay, we are recording and we are live streamed. I am going to tune out and you guys can get to it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone. I'm calling to order this Silverton Town Hall regular meeting on May 26th, 2020 at 7:02 p.m. May I please get a roll call?
Trustee Barella,
Here.
Trustee Harper,
Here.
Trustee Weigert,
Here.
Trustee Bierma,
Here.
Trustee Lashley,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Here.
Mayor Furman.
Here. And Trustee Barella, if you'd like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Shall we all stand if we can? All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Trustee Barella. Revisions to the agenda. With John Ryder's absence this evening, I would like to request that we remove number 8, new business discussion regarding new staff and committee report format, because I think his input is going to be what leads us in that discussion. But otherwise, I don't have any other updates. Anyone else? Sounds good. Thank you. In which case we turn to public comment. We do have a number of attendees. If anyone would like to speak now, please click the raise hand button on your Zoom screen. All right, I don't see anyone. Oh, let's see. Deanne, I see you raising your hand.
I wanted to make a quick chamber comment, and I didn't ask to be on the agenda. But I just wanted to follow up with you guys on the email I sent today about the essential services train coming Thursday. Just to make sure that you all got that email. And it will be a train coming into town to not only show our ICM office the different types of cars and to, start to discussing helping them organize a plan, but also it's bringing up a bunch of food donations, PPE donations, and it's really just trying to kick off that camaraderie between La Plata County and San Juan County in supporting train service when it can be safe, proactive, and the appropriate time to get the train running. Also, the train is thinking outside of the box, possibly some excursions from Silverton, smaller groups into Elk Park or down the canyon and back within a day. So this is our opportunity as a community to help encourage some diversification of train services. And so it should be coming into town around noon on Thursday. We'll be discussing it with the commissioners tomorrow. And we just love for you guys we're gonna have marshals out there to ensure social distancing and no large group gathering. It's gonna be an excellent example that we can do this. And then of course, get us some media and PR for when the train is hopefully able to come back into the valley. So I just wanted to take that quick 2 minutes to address me sending that email to you guys today.
Thank you very much, Deanne. The trustees received an email from Darlene Watson, who asked that I read her email during public comment because she was unable to join this evening. So she wrote some very nice niceties to begin with, but I'm going to skip those in the interest of time and just read her 2 suggestions. So once again, this is Darlene Watson. My first suggestion is for you to consider that Town of Silverton host a 4th of July fireworks show. I fully understand 4th of July festivities being canceled with the COVID-19 and how do you social distance a parade and picnic in the park, but a fireworks show could be socially distanced. I think if we would allow the visitors to park like they were at a movie theater along Main Street, possibly at the 4th of July campground, the baseball field, and other various spots throughout our community, our visitors would view the fireworks from their cars. Viewing the show in your car is very social distanced. We would not have to advertise, but the regular guests that love to come to Silverton could still see fabulous fireworks. It could be a bonus for those regular guests that come to support Silverton, whether or not we have a 4th of July. 4th of July is Independence Day. A lot of Americans totally feel that their civil rights have been taken away, and what a wonderful thing for Silverton to display our celebration of independence. My second suggestion, when deciding what needs to be cut from our budget, as we all know, we should be making some cuts with all of our major events being canceled, and of course, the impact of COVID-19, in parentheses, Iron Horse, 4th of July, and Hard Rock 100. I suggest that we do similar things that Denver did. The mayor of Denver furloughed all city employees 8 days from now until the end of the year. This will be saving the city of Denver $16 million in their budget. Mayor of Denver planned out 5 mandatory days, and employees could decide for themselves the other 3. Furloughing 8 days from now until the end of the year would not hugely impact an employee's pay from paycheck to paycheck, although it could hugely impact town of Silverton budget. Thanks for your consideration. Any other public comment before we move on? All right, in that case, we turn it over to our fantastic OEM team for an update.
All right, great. Well, thanks for inviting us again this evening, and just so we can give you all an update. So it's myself, Jim Donovan, Emergency Manager for San Juan County, and Becky Joyce, our Public Health Director. We also have Deanne Gallegos, our PIO, Bruce Conrad, Sheriff, and then we do have a few other of the IMT that are in the audience that may want to comment, especially Kimmit Holland, who's our safety officer. So with that, let me just do a screen share and give you all an update on where we are at. And here we go. So right now, so what I'm going to do is just give you a situation report. This is really for the entire state of Colorado, and I'll do a little bit of focus on the Southwest. But for the whole state, number of cases still are climbing up. We have, for the whole state, deaths are at 1,300, hospitalized are at 4,100, and confirmed outbreaks are at 267. Just what I wanted to emphasize to show you all with this particular graphic is just where the concentration of outbreaks are occurring. It is more on the Front Range and more in highly populated areas. Just another thing that everybody should be aware of is our southwest part of the state is definitely not out of the woods. We are getting more information just on what's going on in New Mexico and on the Navajo Nation. So we really are keeping track of that information. It's very important. And I'm sure people probably saw in the press release that we did have a person who did come into Silverton last week who was positive, and that was a situation we had to deal with, and that's just something we're going to have to deal with throughout the summer. But another thing I want to really emphasize is that we're kind of on a more of a downward track. One of the key terms that everyone is looking at is the number of hospitalizations and the number of ICU beds available. And for our region, we are doing quite well with that. So that is that's one of the main trigger points and decision points that we look at regionally, and that the state also looks at as well. A executive order was just issued yesterday on May 26th. That executive order basically has allowed restaurants to resume in-dining service, basically at a 50% capacity. It has a lot of details in there, but we've been working through those details and working with our local restaurants on that. We did have a preview of that public health of that executive order last week, and it hasn't really changed too much. May 26th, 25th, and 27th are kind of a big period. I wanted to just emphasize where we're at so everybody has just an idea. So May 25th, spring skiing was allowed at A Basin, so that's a good sign of just kind of the opening strategy. And May 27th is when the new executive order goes into effect. Camping has been opened up at state parks, and with private campgrounds, that has been opened up as well, starting on May 25th. One piece we don't know, and this we would like the town to look into, but just how the town campground is classified. For all intents and purposes, the way we see it, it's very much like a private campground. So we would just suggest that the town basically get clearance with the town lawyer on that, since it's a town property. Another big milestone that we want to, excuse me, look for is that June 1st. That will be next week. And that's when we're going to see another shift with the safer at home order. Just each week it's been just a little bit more opening up, but honestly, I feel like for Silverton in particular, getting the restaurants the ability, they don't have to, but the ability to allow in-service dining, I think is in-person dining is really that's a big thing for them. And we're just hoping that if they decide to do it, that they're able to be successful with it. I also just want to give a quick look where we've been. So we've been shelter in place is where we started. That was the most drastic measures that we had to take. So I've coded that as black. That is just like the most extreme measures. We were then at shelter at home. That's more of red, still very extreme, but not quite as harsh. And then our safer at home. So we're yellow at this point. We're going to be, if things keep trending well, we'll perhaps get to between yellow and green. And a big part of this is just the outreach and education that we've been working on. It's really, honestly, the biggest piece of this is what we're really into is what's called a risk reduction phase, where it's a lot of understanding how the virus interacts in our environment, and then how we can take steps to reduce that risk. And Amy Bakoki with the Sheriff's Office, she made a great flyer up for us today, and we're calling it the 5 commitments to contain COVID-19 in San Juan County. These 5 commitments are being used in some other mountainous counties, particular Eagle and Pitkin. But basically, it's a social contract we all have with each other of maintaining that 6-foot social distance, washing hands, covering your face in public, staying home when you're sick, and getting tested if you have symptoms. So we'll be distributing this and also getting it translated into Spanish. Testing progress, we've made really good established testing, both for viral testing and what's called the antibody testing. And this is a partnership with our incident management team and the Silverton Clinic. I have to do a big shout out to the Silverton Clinic, particularly on the antibody testing. Lois McKinsey in particular has been able to secure a really excellent partnership with a lab, and has been doing just a great job with that. So we want to just make sure people understand that there's very low barrier to get testing in town. And it's very important. It's very important from an epidemiological perspective to get that testing done. The next thing I wanted to address is really the work of the food bank and basically the social safety net. This has really been a dramatic community effort. It's still going on. The food bank has been getting increased requests each week, but they've been just doing just a tremendous job. And I just wanted to make sure there's a big shout out to Jim Harper and Molly Barella in particular for the work that they've put into this. And there's been a lot of volunteers with it. So it's been just extremely impressive. Also on the social safety net, both the town and the school have programs to help utilities and rent assistance for citizens. So it's just another great effort that's been done in town. So before we talk about ordinances, I am now going to throw it over to Becky Joyce, who is going to give just an update on the variance process that we've been working through.
Thanks, Jim. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us tonight. Mine is a bit short on the fact that you all know we started applying for a variance after the last several meetings. It seemed like there is definite need for it. And so we have our application pretty much ready to go, including hospital support from the north and the south. With this new executive order that just came out yesterday, we were able to take we were applying for 3 variances. So one was restaurants for indoor dining. And then the next was for our campgrounds and our RV parks to be able to open. And then the third one was for short-term lodging. So we were pretty concerned about our VRBOs and Airbnbs. And so the first 2 got ticked off the list. So we got to check those off the list today with that executive order yesterday. But we still need some short-term lodging. So we will present it to the county commissioners tomorrow night to make sure they approve and then send it off on Thursday. I was also able to represent us, I felt like pretty well, with the director of CDPHE, the State Health Department today, as well as, I don't know what you call her, but she was like a governor's aide in a large public health director call today to advocate for getting more guidance for tourism type industry and outdoor recreation. They really did not lean towards saying they had guidance out for hotels or for short-term lodging or for a lot of things tourist related. And so quite a few of us really put a big push in this afternoon that they needed to do that sooner than later, and that we have big expectations that they will address our needs. I think the idea was that as mountain communities, we really don't want to open up and we don't want to get a rush of people and we need to be protected. And yes, all that is true, but we also let them know that we absolutely needed the teeter-totter to start moving in the right direction, and guidance was key. So thanks, Jim.
Excellent. Thank you, Becky. Okay, so now we just wanted to address ordinances. As the incident management team has been working throughout this process, there's a few pieces that it's really kind of out of our, I'd say out of our zone to really make decisions. And one of these is definitely on the ordinances piece. This is really more of a town function. And I've got 4 different suggestions for the town. And the number 1 is probably the most controversial, so we'll just get it started right out the bat. But Durango, the city of Durango has adopted a mask ordinance. As far as and as the city of Aspen as well. So this has been more done on a municipal level through Colorado. Our approach to the mask question is really, we highly recommend that people use masks, and we're taking more of an educational approach. And we are going to put out a health advisory to suggest wearing masks. And also, if we are not seeing good mask compliance, that's when we would use a health order. In the restaurant guidance, it does have restaurant employees wearing masks and gloves, but it just says suggestion for customers. We will be here to provide basically scientific expertise, technical assistance in our opinions, but we really wanted to actually suggest to the town board that you all make kind of a call on this and the other ordinances, and that we are just providing this advice piece. Becky, did you want to add anything to that before we open up that discussion piece?
I think you really covered it. And I know I've talked to at least one or two others of you that there are a lot of pros and cons either way. But we really do, we would like to pass the decision-making ability to everyone, and what you guys think and what you feel. And as other towns, city councils and town councils are helping make this decision, we just feel like it's a good one to spread around. We also know that if we end up getting a outbreak or some cases or behavior that we need to reel it back in, if you guys decide not to do a mask ordinance and you want us to do an advisory for the town, and if accessibility of masks is there for businesses, to be able to just hand out to people an encouragement for them to wear it in businesses. If there is a problem, then we would not hesitate to put out a ordinance, a mandatory mask ordinance, if you choose not to, if there was a problem in the future. So we are prepared to do either of what you want us to do, either an advisory, or if you feel like issuing a town ordinance, then we respect that as well. So.
And then Lisa Brainer, if Kimmett Holland is on there, I think Kimmett wanted to provide some more technical expertise on this, and then also just from the perspective of as EMS director.
Kimmett's been unmuted, so he should be able to speak.
I'm good. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jim and Lisa and Becky. First, I just want to congratulate all of you that I haven't had a chance to for the elections and our new board. Really look forward to working with the entire group as we move forward. Also want to make a big shout out. I've been in fire EMS almost 40 years, a little over 35 years. And I am very, very proud of the team that we have here in Silverton and San Juan County, and the work that they've done with this pandemic. But they've had a lot of experience with fires and avalanches and all kinds of other disasters, Gold King, that we've had to deal with over the years. So we're getting our act together. So with that being said, I take a much, I'd say, more firm line on the mask issue. I would strongly encourage the board to really look at this as a as a option that we have that can keep our community safe. This is really a hard time, and there's so many mixed messages. A lot of people make the mask a political statement, or they say people who wear masks are just scared and all that. But let me just remind you that we have all kinds of other health laws and ordinances and rules. You can't smoke in a restaurant. You can't drink and drive. You have to wear a seatbelt. This is just another one that I think is important. It's one of the only, we have a few things, right? Social distance, stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask, and wash your hands. Those are three very simple things that we can do to protect ourselves. Now, if we don't do this, if we don't do it, if we leave it up to folks to decide and we encourage them, and you know, from what I see around the country, you give an inch, they take a mile. And we are at a point, in my opinion, we're at a crux point in our summer. We're almost into June. We open up and our restaurants open up tomorrow. Shops are opening up. People are they're already here. They're already coming. They're already disobeying what we've requested. And, you know, somebody took my favorite campsite the other night, you know, so it's already happening. And if we don't take action right now and we get the summer really starting to kick in, people are going to get in their routines and they're going to get in their habit. That's going to be difficult to change. It will be really ugly if Becky in July 1st has to do a public health order that closes everything down. So if you think in terms of timeline, right? So we're at the 1st of June. We open up. Somebody with COVID, which we already had, as Jim explained the other day, it was a pretty complex issue that we had to deal with. But you're going to have somebody come in. Good people, love them. I'm glad they're coming and they're going to bring their business. But they're a carrier for whatever reason, however they got it. And they come to town, they go to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 shops, they eat lunch here, they're not wearing a mask, and they infect 2 or 3 people. Then they leave town, they're gone, they're back on the train, back to their home state. We won't even know about that for 2 weeks, maybe a week, maybe a few days. We won't know that. But in that time, let's say it's 7 days, who did those people come in contact? When did they actually become contagious? And who have they been around? So when you talk about exponentially spreading this, I think a good way to describe it is a pond that has one lily in it, and it duplicates itself, doubles itself in size every day for 30 days until the pond is full. And somebody asked, well, what day was it half full? It was the 29th day that it was half full. So this is when we talk in terms of exponentially spreading this, that's how quick it can move. If we paid any attention to how one person in this country had it that we knew of back in the day, and here we are, what, 2.5 months later, we have 1.5 million people, almost 100,000 people dead. It could happen, and it only takes one, and we're probably going to see more than one. So for me, again, I've been meeting with John and Todd and really trying to encourage to get hand washing stations on every corner we can afford it, and you know, make it convenient for people to follow these guidelines. But I think masks, you know, we all know that if I'm a carrier and I'm wearing a mask is more effective than me being a carrier and you wearing a mask and I sneeze right in front of you. You know, there is a much higher risk and potential. So I'll just end with this, that I would say, you know, I feel keeping Silverton safe keeps us open. If we don't want to see a surge of COVID, mask is an easy thing for us to require. Other people are doing it. It's protecting our own folks. I honestly feel if we're not doing that, we're not doing, if I own a business and I don't do it, I'm not doing enough to protect my own employees by letting people come in, because it's invisible. You can have somebody that's a carrier and you can have somebody that's a non-carrier standing right next to each other. You'll never tell the difference unless they're symptomatic. And so anyway, that's my point on that. I think waiting a month, you know, in a month when we get into July and we can say we've had little or no cases, or the 1 or 2 cases we've had, we've isolated them, we're good, we're open, come visit us. is much better than, man, we had to close 2 or 3 of our shops. They just all got sick. And I would never say that that wearing masks is 100%. I don't think that's the case, but it's what we know that helps, and we should strongly look at that. And let's try to salvage what, business, what summer economic we can by trying to keep everybody open as best we can. So
Thank you,
thanks
Kemet.
for your time, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. I see that Sheriff Conrad has his hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I would just add one thing for your consideration on this, I think, really important decision is that I feel like we're already in the experiment of encouraging people to wear their masks and seeing if they will do the right thing. I think we have some locals and an awful lot of visitors who are proudly displaying that they don't feel the need to wear the mask. And so I think that the answer to that question is already afoot. And if we want to take safety seriously, that's something to seriously consider, please.
Sheriff Conrad, I just have a quick follow-up to that, which is, are you comfortable with ability to enforce an ordinance that would require masks?
Absolutely not. No, there's nothing comfortable about that. I don't envy the position I would hope that the town would assist and that Bill McDougal would be assisting in that as well. But no, it's not an enviable position by any means. And I certainly don't want to spend our time running around telling people to put their masks on. But if we have a strong enough messaging system and a strong enough campaign that makes folks aware, I think we can accomplish a great deal of the safety goals ahead of us without having to, constantly pick on people. But if we encourage it, I think we're already in that situation now, and it's failing, in my opinion.
Hey, Mayor, can I make one more comment on that?
Sure.
Just to add, and so I wrote an op-ed, it'll come out, or at least an opinion piece for the paper. One of the things, I know there are a lot of business owners that are concerned that if they require masks, people won't come. I also say, and I think that will happen, I have no doubt. But I would also say there are a lot of people that probably will not enter a business if they know they're not requiring masks, because you're basically have the potential of walking in to to a place that has a lot of aerosol still running around. You have no idea when you walk into a shop if somebody just coughed or sneezed or held up that T-shirt and breathed on it before you tried it on. So I think it goes both ways, and I think people don't think about that. They think about the people who complain a lot about having to wear a mask, but the reality, if you wear a mask, you're showing you care about the people around you, whether they're relatives or friends or strangers. And if you don't wear a mask, to me it's showing the opposite, that you really don't. And I totally agree with Sheriff Conrad. I think for me, I've seen enough to know that people, they're not going to be compliant. And as far as how we would hold people to it, I think the best that we're going to be able to do with our lack of resources is to make it an ordinance which gives our business owners that really want to say, hey, it's a town ordinance, I cannot allow you in here. It sort of takes the burden off of somebody who owns that shop to say, hey, but they really want to protect themselves, but they don't want to get in a fight or a debate with somebody that thinks that their rights are being violated. But
thank you, Ken.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jim, kicking it back to you.
Okay, great. Yep, thanks, Kemet and Bruce, for that. We will stay around for questions on that piece, but let me just get through the other ordinance suggestions that we have. So with more of the restaurant type of order, there should be a compliance system. We could potentially do that, but we really wanted to kind of open it up more for discussion and not have it like a top-down thing. So I'll leave that one there. The other really big suggestion is, which has already been implemented, but really encouraging patio sidewalk use for visitors, and also addressing the open container issues. And those are all really city liquor permit ordinances. So figuring those out. Other municipalities have figured out basically emergency relaxation of those, just work on that. And then there are some side streets that could very well be converted to some type of outdoor dining. So we'll leave those there, but those are our suggestions from the incident management team. And then really, let me just address two things, and then I can open it up. We can open it up for a discussion from the board and from the general public. But I did want people to realize that we are in stage 1 fire restrictions. The U.S. Forest Service has already implemented that for the Columbine District in the San Juan National Forest. And it's going to be a year where multiple hazards and incidents will exist. It's just a straightforward. This year already just on its own is tracking very similar to the climate when we had a big fire with the 416. So it's just something on the emergency management side we've been very, very aware of. And I just think it's important for the town to just understand that. The last piece, and just to kind of close that, from the county side, we are going to be presenting to the commissioners, and the sheriff is the fire marshal, but looking at just aligning county fire restrictions with the San Juan National Forest. But that'll be a discussion for tomorrow. And then the last, Deanne mostly addressed it, but just that the train will be basically doing an essential services train on Thursday. We've been in good discussion with them, but I just want to emphasize we are just we're working with them, but it really is a train-centric project, but we fully support it. And then with that, unless Becky, Bruce, or Deanne, if you have any other things, I'm good to take questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. So first, let's turn this to staff and trustee questions, if there are any. And Jim, perfect, there we go.
Oh, yep.
So any questions from this group? Trustee Lashley.
Thank you, Mayor Furman. This question, I guess, is directed towards mostly Sheriff Conrad. Sheriff Conrad, how do you feel about the suggestion from the OEM team here about open containers in public right-of-way and enforcement issues around that? Because I know it's been a problem, especially on big weekends for us in the past, and just want to get your opinion on that really quick.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up, Trustee Lashley. It's, as you know, I kind of came out of the industry. I was a bartender for a long time. I understand those laws and the industry very well. And am typically in my current role as the sheriff, very strict on that. I think it's a difficult position. It's an important position to hold a liquor license in a community, and it's a position that has a great deal of responsibility. And I feel as though we should hold those folks to the standard required by the state and by our local enforcement here. However, in this situation, I find myself, these are difficult times. We're thinking outside of the box and trying to do things differently. So I am surprisingly to many, I think, very loose as far as what we do to adapt and overcome the current situation. And I'm personally all for some open containers on the parking space, picnic tables and whatnot. I know that might present some problems for some people, but I don't think it's a huge deal. And I think that, again, these are difficult times and we're trying to do things outside of the box to try and make things easier on everyone. And if that helps, I'm all for supporting it.
Thank you, Sheriff Conrad. I know that does not make your job easier, but we really do appreciate it. And we appreciate you chiming in and giving us your opinion on that. Thank you.
Any other questions from this group? Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Thank you, everybody. I just had a quick question to clarify from the latest guidance. Is there anything about group size anymore, or are we out of group size limitations?
It's still at 10, Sally. There is special and specific guidance for summer camps and for schools. And so that guidance is there. I think it was groups of 25 for outdoor spaces and 10 still for indoor classes. But I will email that to you if you want, if you need it. And Kim White is, you know, already very proficient. So.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Trustee Barella.
I would like to say once again, thank you to our awesome OEM team. Bruce, Becky, Jim, Deanne, you guys have done an amazing job. It's not easy getting beat up all the time with every decision that comes out of that office, and defending it doesn't get any easier anytime. So, and thank you for the shout out for the food bank. Thanks to our other volunteers that helped us with that as well. And Becky and I, we had a kind of a private sidebar on some of this. And to be clear about open container and making sure that we're not trying to hide it, I guess right now is probably the most important thing. We chose to do clear glasses for anybody with the required label over the top to make sure that if law enforcement did need to see it, it was plain as day for them to view. So I would encourage that be something that all restaurant owners, if we do more of an outdoor kind of patio seating and expanded upon what we have, that I would encourage all to do it that way instead of putting it into opaque to go Coke glasses or coffee mugs. So that way it's clear that it is a beverage, an adult beverage. And let's see, size limitations to on-site dining or inside dining, excuse me, is 50. And so that in itself is strange because we still can't have crowd sizes more than 10. So we need to make sure that we handle this appropriately, that people really understand that they need to wait in their vehicles if there is a capacity level in each of the different restaurants based on what the order says. So there will be a lot of self-policing that we as individual business owners will have to do inside our spaces to really make this go off without a hitch, to really start pushing to make sure people understand we didn't write the rules, but we have to follow them. So becoming compliant like that, especially for the restaurants right now, this is huge. This is huge for us to get to move forward right now. So I appreciate everything our OEM team has done, and thank you all.
Thank you, Molly. I just wanted to say real quick, there is a lot of detail in the restaurant guidance. So, you know, it's important for any restaurant owner on this call is to make sure they read through it and that we are available to help out with any questions.
Thank you. I had a quick one, and then Trustee Lashley, back to you. This one's for Becky, which is how do we go about, or how do community members go about scheduling testing in town, and what's the cost?
So testing, if you're sick and you have symptoms and you think you might need to get diagnostically tested for coronavirus, you would call, either way, you can call public health 387-0242 or get a hold of me, and we essentially can do testing that day, except for maybe a Sunday. But For the antibody testing with the Silverton Clinic, you can still call me and I'll get you in touch with Lois and Tyler, or you can call the Silverton Clinic directly, which is the 387-5114. There is no cost with any of the testing options. They will try to bill your insurance at the Silverton Clinic, especially if you have Medicare. And they will draw both the blood sample at the Silverton Clinic for the antibody test, and they are also doing a nasal swab at the same time. It's just what that lab requires, which is, I think it's great. You know, it removes any kind of doubt of whether or not you are currently positive, and then helps with the test results, you know, whichever way it goes, depending.
Thank you. Trustee Lashley?
I think mine perfectly rolls into that. Was just curious for you guys what you've seen as far as testing, how many people maybe you've seen roughly as far as testing, and if you guys have any kind of results to share as far as what you've seen from people.
So the first week, Tyler and Lois did 24, actually the very first week, I think they did, less than 10, maybe 5 or 6. The second week they did 24. This week, I don't know how many they're doing, but their list has gone into the following week. They're trying to test, at least currently, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And as far as results, I definitely don't want to say anything yet. I'll let Lois decide when those results come out. But and then you asked a third question. Did you? No. But I mean, as far as our first, as far as our first case, as we know, it was from a past exposure. So, you know, we certainly wouldn't be surprised if the results did show some exposure in our town previously. So
I guess I have one other question that kind of wraps into this. How does that affect our numbers as far as what we're reporting? Do those, if those tests come back positive, does that increase the cases that we've had in town?
such a great question. It's so complex. So there's 2 different kind of antibody tests, and one is IgG, which shows antibodies built up from an exposure. IgM shows a recent past infection and not necessarily the IgG antibodies yet. So perhaps the longer it's been since you've been exposed, you might have developed the IgG because it shows the antibodies you've built up, but it might be negative for IgM. So the IgM and IgG are reportable to the state. The IgM, which is the recent past exposure potential, if it comes with other symptoms, such as, after a couple months, you're still having symptoms, which a lot of people do after COVID, or if you've been around someone who was definitely positive, tested positive, that counts as our case count, the one on the counties and the one for the state. If you only test positive for IgG, that does not go on that case count, but it says you are a suspected case. So we could have all these suspected cases, but it wouldn't go on our main case count. At least that's what we are being told right now. And that may change. There's just so much. Quite a few tests come out indeterminate, which is really confusing. And from what Lois explained to me the other day is essentially indeterminate means maybe you were exposed to a different strain of coronavirus at some point, but not necessarily the SARS-CoV-2. So that is one reason that public health departments are not doing these antibody tests, because it is complex and confusing. And just because you test positive for the IgG showing that you have antibodies, we don't know if you have enough to withstand an infection or an illness again. So it's kind of like, I've been exposed, but I could still get sick, but maybe I couldn't. And so it's really pretty complex. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. That was very informative.
Sure.
Thank you. Unless there's any other questions from this group, I'm going to open it up to public questions. We have at least one hand raised. Trustee Lashley.
All right, guys, just one more, and maybe we talk about it tomorrow, but do we maybe as a board need to talk about fire danger regarding, July and stuff coming up here? Is that a discussion that's probably more beneficial after the county meeting tomorrow?
In any particular context besides the general danger and things that we need to be thinking about?
Well, I mean, I think for sure the letter that we received regarding the 4th of July fireworks, I think that's probably the most important, but just kind of generally I've heard from friends that work fire in Durango that potentially we're looking at public land closures if we don't get some serious moisture here by mid-June here, so.
Seems like a good thing for us to discuss then.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it sounds like we're going to have a couple of things that we may want to call an intermediate meeting for rather than waiting another 2 weeks. The ordinance suggestions and discussions around those under normal circumstances, we would follow the notice procedure and 2 readings of the ordinance. It seems like some of these we'd want to consider sooner. Some we want to let the community know that we're not considering. So I think we'll need to consult with the town attorney and perhaps schedule another meeting in less than 2 weeks, and one that includes Administrator Ryder, because I think his opinion and figuring out how to both draft and adopt any of these ordinances will be important.
Okay, it sounds like then if we have another meeting that we can schedule, that maybe we wait, and I assume that Elijah and the Forest Service folks will be Elijah's from the BLM will be giving us a little bit of an update regarding moisture then tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah, just to fill you in on that, Austin, both BLM and the Forest Service Ranger District Ranger will be there. And we're going to just try to get those fire restrictions all aligned. And just so everybody knows, the sheriff is the fire marshal. So him or myself could provide any kind of guidance you guys need, but should have an answer tomorrow with all that aligned.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to kick this over to Eric Lawyer, who's had his hand up for a little while. Eric, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good deal. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, Becky, Jim, the OEM group. I know that this must be challenging. And I just wanted to ask if in the variance that you guys are going to be asking for, including the short-term rentals and all that stuff, have we discussed at all outdoor recreation? I know I've seen that Durango has included outdoor recreation, and because it is such a driver for the economy down in Durango and in Uray and in Gunnison, they've all kind of included that as part of their variance and what they're looking to do. Have we discussed that at all? Is that on the table? Is there any way to get that there? And I guess that's my question.
Thank you, Eric. Would the OEM team like to address that?
Becky, I think Becky's got a little more inside information.
I was hoping you would do this. So Eric, this is such a good question and it's so timely. I want to apologize to you and the rest of this industry because it took me seeing the Durango Herald article today to realize, oh my gosh, we have another variance to write. So what I wanted to do, and this was just a couple hours ago, so what I would like to do is be able to discuss it with the team. We have not handed in the variance yet. We are hoping to do that Thursday morning. So if I may get my thoughts together, if we might possibly give you a call to talk it over with what that exactly would look like, what businesses such as yours are capable of that would ensure social distancing, et cetera, then that is my current plan, as well as passing it by the commissioners tomorrow night. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. Can you guys hear me? I'm on my
Yeah.
phone, so I can't tell. Okay. So yeah, no, I'm happy to help any way that I can. I know what without the variance of what we at Rock Pirates are planning on doing and how we're going to deal with this and comply with state and CDC regulations and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, if there's anything else, or if you guys have any questions for me or anything else, and it's not just us. I mean, outdoor rec is a big part of what we can offer to tourism and to people in general. So yeah, if there's anything I can do, by all means, call me, and we can go over it, or I can meet with you or whatever.
That would be great. I've been talking to some restaurant owners as well as a VRBO owner, just to get an idea, since you guys are the experts, on what could, should, and then what other industries we should be thinking about. So I'll get your number from Deanne and give you a call in the morning, hopefully.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you guys all. Seriously. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other public comments or questions at this time for the OEM team? It seems no. So I know that you all have meeting fatigue and you're probably attending more meetings than all of us combined. So thank you very much for this update and your time today. And we appreciate everything that you're doing. And
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And keep up the good work yourselves.
Thank you. So moving along to the consent agenda and approving the consent agenda, did anyone have comments or edits to the payroll, accounts payable, or meeting minutes from the May 11th meeting? I'll just jump in with, I saw two quick typos in the May 11th meeting minutes, which were Commissioner Fetch's name was misspelled, which I don't think is terribly substantive, and the meeting adjourned at 11:11 p.m., I believe, as opposed to 11:11 a.m. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I can motion to approve it.
Thank you, Trustee Bierma.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Trustee Lashley. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barella?
Yes, I'm having a problem with my internet, so hopefully I'm only on speaker for this reason.
You're fine. Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Weigert?
Yes.
Trustee Bierma?
Yeah.
Trustee Lashley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. And then moving along to staff reports, it didn't look like there were any items noted for discussion by staff, but I would ask at this time if any of the staff that's participating would like to go through any component of their report, please raise your hand or begin speaking. And if any trustees have any questions about the substance of the staff reports, please raise your hand as well. I do not see any there.
Can I talk?
Yep. Yeah, please, Trustee Barella.
It was, I know John's not here, but it was met with Citizens State Bank to discuss possibly financing strategies to mitigate anticipated sales tax loss. So that is something that we really, really need to focus on. Obviously, we didn't get to have our previous meeting, but I don't want to let some of this work that John's been doing fall by the wayside. So I don't know how, if we're going to do a special meeting to deal with some of these ordinance issues, if we could potentially get a finance committee meeting in that as well, because that's a very important issue.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that there's some pretty significant complications with the municipality taking out financing that he's working through. And I think we've got the right guy to work through that with his background. Any other comments or questions for staff reports?
I just want to let
Yes.
you guys know that town received all the masks that Todd Bove had ordered through his sister. We got those today.
Fantastic. That's 10,000 masks.
Yes.
Fantastic. And I assume that probably Lisa or you can speak to how those will eventually be distributed. And Lisa has her hand up if you'd like to talk.
I think we're working on a plan for that. John Ryder did also submit a grant proposal for PPE supplies. The intention there being that they would be something we could distribute amongst the businesses to help minimize financial impact for them needing to meet certain requirements in order to be open. I don't know all the details about that, but I do know that a grant was submitted for that purpose, and these masks may also be used for that purpose. The other thing I wanted to just bring to all the trustees' attention is that the new town website is live. I would like to stress that it is not perfect. We're going to be working on ongoing revisions for this, but it was quite an undertaking to get it migrated. We do now have a new website, and I would encourage you all to take a spin through it. And I'll be working with each department head to make sure that the information on their individual pages and the things that relate to their departments is updated and correct. And there will be ongoing updates to this to continue to improve it over time.
Thank you, Lisa. And I can say that it's much more intuitive than the previous website. It's pretty cool to see us stepping forward. Anyone who hasn't seen it yet, I recommend taking a quick spin through it. And if you do see anything wrong with it, shoot Lisa a note so she can update it. Trustee Lashley.
Thanks, Mayor Furman. I just had a question for staff regarding hand sanitizer stations and maybe other kind of PPE supplies. I know that the town was planning on putting some up, and just had a question for you guys about how that's going and what kind of time frame we're looking at getting some of that stuff up.
I just unmuted Todd Bove, who is attending, and maybe Todd can speak to that.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, Todd, thank you.
Okay, so where we're at right now, currently in our possession, we have 25 gallons of hand sanitizer. I ordered touchless dispensers that will be located around town, probably on 4x4s in the parks. Those have not arrived yet. So we have the actual hand sanitizer, but we do not have the dispensers yet. The last I checked, the dispensers are expected June 11th. They've been pushed off twice. So I'm working on a plan to get us through. The good news is that we have the actual sanitizer. So we've just got to come up with a distribution system here. And I was hoping to accomplish that by the end of this week.
Thank you, Todd. Trustee Lashley, any follow-ups for that?
No, thank you, Mr. Bove.
Anything else for staff reports? So then moving along to trustee reports, in addition to whatever else we have to report, I would love to hear updates on committee meetings in terms of work towards the scope and defining the committees that we talked about a few meetings ago, and whoever's been appointed as the point person so that we can update our spreadsheet for scheduling and things like that. So why don't we just do a quick round robin? Whoever would like to go first. Trustee Birma.
Yeah, I can go ahead with, see, we met, so that would have been Mayor Furman, Mayor Pro Tem Barney, met with Lisa Branner and Todd Bove on the 21st as part of the Parks and Events Committee and Facilities, with the main goal to just go over general operations overview, and then the different current projects and potential future projects, and basically just different aspects, and going through the whole list of all the parks and facilities that we have, and giving Lisa and Todd the goal to come up with a narrowed down scope of what this committee is all about. So as far as the parks and facilities we went over, we talked about Mullis, Kendall, Memorial Park, Columbine Park, Hillside Cemetery, Carnegie Library, Town Hall, Visitor Center, and the Carriage House. And again, just going over the current operations, which are changing, on a daily or weekly basis, depending on how things are opening up. And so we're totally on top of that. So, definitely more recreation coming to Mullis, and, going over, for example, like that we have a big inspection, the chairlifts coming up this year. And one of the points we brought up was talking about, having a, future goal of creating a savings plan for the Parks and Rec to cover some of those long-term expenses and different maintenance things that come up as well. Let me check my notes, see if we missed anything else. We definitely spent most of the time going through those facilities. We had scheduled some time with Lisa to go over events, but we did not get to that this meeting, and we'll hopefully get to that soon in the future. I don't know if there's anything else you needed to add or wanted to add from there. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
Well, I believe you are the, what do we appoint you, secretary point person for our committee, so I will let you take over.
All right, thank you, Trustee Brilla. I have a number of updates. So beginning with Securo, which is our IT resource, they provided town with a temporary server to support our ability to more efficiently work remotely, both the trustees and town staff, and they've ported over the town emails now to that new server. So I think that anyone who's still using browser access for their emails should be able to call Securo and get a native style 365 Microsoft application for their computer, whether it's a Macintosh or Windows, to be able to more efficiently use your email when not at town hall. I participated in a scholarship meeting for the school where the American Legion very generously provided a large scholarship fund for the Silverton school that gets awarded to graduating seniors each year. And we had 4 applications, and all 4 were awarded scholarships. And those scholarships are to be used for continued education or similar endeavors. And so that was pretty exciting. And connected to that, we also had our graduation since the last meeting. We had 6 graduates this year. The school received some really awesome support from the fire department in hosting a social distanced graduation ceremony with the seniors traveling around town on the fire truck. And a lot of this was documented by Jason Ebelheiser, who's working on a short film that kind of displays this process and how we adapted as a community to this year. And it includes speeches by the graduates. So we should all keep an eye out for that. That'll get posted as soon as he's done editing. And we also had a school board budget meeting talking about summer school and other activities that the school can support. And the school's top priority in terms of finances, figuring out how to best support local families and make sure that we don't lose any local families because of financial reasons, particularly related to the school. We also had 2 recovery team meetings since the last meeting of this board. And that group it's officially the economic recovery committee. And right now we're mostly working through composition and fine tuning purpose so that then we can begin, I think, dividing the group up into smaller subgroups to work on specific initiatives. That said, that group has had a lot of success in obtaining grants for the community that have been used to and distributed significantly for people and families that needed support for utilities and rent and other things like that. The Parks and Rec meeting, Jordan just updated. I'm sorry, Trustee Bierma updated. Mayor Pro Tem Barney will update us on the Kendall meeting. Then Trustee Harper, Trustee Barella, and myself participated in the Code and Personnel meeting. And Administrator Ryder really is doing a great job taking the lead on that. We're going to be having that meeting once per month. We may increase frequency if needed by staff. Right now, staff is systematically working through updating the town code. They meet every week. There's an update to the ADU code provision that was proposed and approved by the Planning Commission for presentation to this group at some point. And the Planning Commission, I'm sorry, that was it for the ADU regulation. And then staff is now working on the vacation rental code provision. They're at the early stages of that, but that one needed quite a bit of work, and I'm excited to see what they present to us in the coming weeks. On the personnel side, composition structure and categorizing employees correctly is a top priority for staff. And the employee manual also needs a quick look through, particularly in connection with the definition of exempt versus non-exempt employees and employee job descriptions. And it sounds like staff is on top of that. The last portion of my update is a thank you. I'd like to thank the staff of town. In addition to the normal responsibilities that you guys have, which are significant during this time of year transitioning from the summer, from the spring into the summer, you have a huge volume of additional work. We're working through all the new and unexpected challenges to improve our ability to live, work, and play in Silverton under these unique circumstances. You're working through budget cuts, anticipating our lower than expected sales tax revenue. You've been supporting this board of trustees, which has 4 new members that have not served in this capacity before. And I know that that's an exponential amount of additional work, and we appreciate that. And in addition to all this, you're attending way more meetings than is normal for this time. And I just wanted you all to know that your effort doesn't go unnoticed. And on behalf of the entire Silverton community, we thank you for your hard work. And to those watching, when you see our town staff around town, please show them appreciation for their commitment to town and the hard work they're doing in these uncertain times. We would not have a functioning town without them. Thank you. Who is next? Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Here, here. Thanks, Jane. I definitely echo your statement of gratitude for the staff, and especially coming from one of the 4 newest members that needs a lot of support. Update on Kendall is we had a kind of a light meeting, I would say, this week. We welcomed our 2 new members, Jeff and Anthony, and kind of brought them up to speed. We also reviewed some projects that the group had identified sort of earlier on in the process of forming this project that we may revisit now that the RFI is kind of out and we're waiting for submissions there. And then we read and offered feedback on a Q&A for the Silverton Standard. And then just another kind of non-town related committee, but in this case, it is town related. The Silverton Family Learning Center, and specifically Sarah Mordecai, has joined the effort with John Ryder on behalf of town and Kim White on behalf of the school to seek she just received another $25,000 grant that will just go, it will be work in coordination with the efforts that John and Kim have already put in place with the grants that they received previously. But that's really good news for our town too. And a kind of a shout out to Sarah for making that happen.
Thank you. Trustee Lashley.
Thank you, Mayor Furman. I have two things to report. The quick one here is the Public Utilities Committee has started communicating, but our Public Works Director, John Seitz, asked to have 2 weeks or so to make sure that he could kind of get caught up on his seasonal changeover stuff here before we met, but he said it's definitely on his list, and we'll be meeting as soon as he has the availability for us to go over some things like the sewer project. That's the quick one. The other one that I have is I attended a meeting for a new organization that's been meeting fairly regularly lately called the Headwaters Center for Environmental and Economic Independence. And that is a group that is trying to promote a wide variety of things, but what was discussed at the meeting that I attended on Saturday was a few different things. We talked about community-wide composting and trying to explore information that we would need, site analysis and help that it would take to get going a community-wide composting center, which I thought was a really great idea. And I hope to hear more from this group about that kind of initiative that they're planning. They also spoke a little bit about trying to coordinate with some other groups for their nonprofit status and get a little bit more formally organized. And then we also talked about some town cleanup ideas too, and some support that we could provide the town of that they could provide the town of Silverton and some organization to kind of help with the spring cleanup and maybe the 4th or 5th of July cleanup as well. And it was just it was a really great meeting with some mostly, I would say, younger folks in the community, but they seemed like they were really making strides towards making good things happen for the community in general, which I was really excited to see. And their meetings are Saturday at 3 o'clock. I think right now they've been meeting in Memorial Park so that people can appropriately social distance while they have a meeting outside in an open space. I spoke with our Public Works Director, Todd Bove, a little bit about the cleanup, and I know that some other folks were supposed to check in with Kim White, but it's on our plate to kind of circle back together after this meeting and the county commissioner meeting tomorrow to kind of put together a little bit more formalized plan. I also met with John Ryder about the town cleanup, and we came up with kind of a tentative date for doing that. I think we had thought maybe June 6th, that's a Saturday, might be a good day for that, but I think we still have a little bit more organization before we can fully commit to figuring out exactly when we're going to do that. But that's a great community event so that we can, all participate in making our community look a little bit better.
Thank you. Trustees Wiegert, Harper, or Barella, any updates?
You covered the meeting we were in.
Thank you.
Trustee Harper, would you like to talk about the Planning Commission meeting we attended? Okay, I guess not. I will. First two items on the agenda for the Planning Commission meeting were matters for the Historic Review Committee. One involving the ski fence on the avalanche in the beginning, and we came to a decision that we would allow that for 3 years based on the fact that it was a non-conforming building to begin with, historically speaking. And the skis, although not historical, they do kind of hide some of the inaccuracies in the historical presentation of the existing building. The other item for the Historic Review Committee was Lashley residents on Empire Street or Blair Street. They want to change up the front facade a little bit, and they had proposed some window changes and adding a French door on the second story that would enter onto a balcony overhanging the sidewalk. We all considered that was probably historically accurate and something that the Historic Review Committee was okay with. So those were both recommended for approval. And then, as you talked about there, Mayor Furman, we also discussed the ADU changes. Planning Commission recommended approval on the changes of the ADU for the town board. And I guess we'll see that revised ordinance coming here in our next meeting or two. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion or comments before we move on? All right. So now we move on to the second reading of Ordinance 2020-02 with respect to employee RV usage. Kelly, are you available to do that second reading?
Yes, I am.
All right, please go ahead. Thank you.
Ordinance number 2020-02, an ordinance to allow campers within the town for the purpose of housing qualified employees on a temporary seasonal basis. Whereas the town of Silverton has adopted regulations related to the occupancy and unoccupied storage of campers, vehicles in the municipal code, chapter 7, article 2, section 7-2-17 campers. And whereas the occupancy of recreational vehicle campers within the town is allowed only as a convenience for visiting friends and relatives during the construction of a dwelling unit, whereas campers may be parked for occupancy on or adjacent to occupied residential properties for a total of 20 camper days per calendar year. And whereas they currently exist a shortage of rental housing for employees during the busy summer tourist season. And whereas business owners have requested that the Board of Trustees assist in finding workable solutions that meet the housing needs of seasonal employees, and whereas campers parked on private residential properties may offer suitable seasonal housing alternatives for some employees without unduly impacting other neighborhood residents. And whereas the Board of Trustees deem it in the best interest of the town to allow the occupancy of campers for seasonal housing on a temporary basis. Now therefore being ordained by the Board of Trustees in the town of Silverton that section 7-2-17 campers. A, occupancy. The occupancy of campers within the town for visiting friends and family is limited to a total of 20 camper days per calendar year. B, exception for qualified employees. The occupancy of campers within the town for qualified employees allowed from May 15th to October 15th without any limitations to the number of days. All qualified employees must submit an application to the town that includes the following. 1, authorized property owners shall provide within written permission for employees to park a camper on their property. And 2, employer verification. Employer shall provide written verification that person is employed at least 30 hours per week for 4 days a week. If the person is self-employed, then business license or other documentation demonstrating employment shall be deemed acceptable for purpose of verifying the employment requirements. C, restrictions for campers for qualified employees. All campers for qualified employees are subject to the following restrictions. 1, vehicle types, RV, motorhomes type A, B, and C, fifth wheel trailers and truck campers are permitted. Teardrop trailers, tent campers, vans, tents, and yurts are prohibited. 2, zoning allowed as a temporary use in R1, R1A, R2, BA, BP, back half of lots only, and ED zones prohibited in P zone. Number 3, Destiny 1 RV camper per 2,500 square feet of lot area. 4, setbacks. RV campers shall be parked entirely on private property and shall comply with all setbacks. 5, license. RV campers shall have a current vehicle license. 6, facilities. RV campers shall be fully contained and holding tanks shall be emptied on a regular basis at appropriate dump stations. 7, noise, no generators or loud noises are allowed before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. Trash, campers shall be required to pay the town's transfer station fee, and property shall be kept neat and orderly and free of trash rubbish accumulations. 9, permit RV campers shall be issued a town permit to be placed inside the front windshield of the vehicle. 10, expiration, this ordinance shall remain in full force, effect unless otherwise amended or terminated by the Town of Silverton Board of Trustees.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Any discussion? All right. That being the case, and since we've revised the agenda to skip this new business component, we're at our second public comment. At this time, if any of our Zoom attendees have anything to say, please click the raise hand button so that we can allow you to speak. Trustee Wiegert.
Is there no need for a second vote on the second reading?
I suppose we can, just for good measure. I think that since we already voted the second reading and comment, we would be all right, but I would defer to Administrator Ryder. And in this case, why don't we go ahead and vote just in case? I don't think that can hurt. So all in favor of Ordinance 2020-02 relating to employee
No, I
RV
believe
usage.
this should be a roll call. I believe this should be a roll call.
I agree with you, Jess.
Yeah.
Great. So Kelly, roll call, please. Or I suppose, do we need a motion and a second?
I think we need a motion and a second and then a roll call.
Let's do that.
Did we close public comment?
Yeah, nobody's raised their hands, and at least in the last minute or so. So I believe we are now closing public comment. So may I hear a motion?
Okay, well, I keep losing everything.
I'll make it easier. May I hear a motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance 2020-02 relating to employee RV usage?
I'll also move the second reading to approve the second reading of ordinance 2020-02.
Thank you, Trustee Lashley. Do I hear a second?
I'll second. I don't think I'm connecting, you guys. Having an issue.
We can hear you now, but we didn't hear you before, Trustee Barilla.
Okay, because I was actually reading.
Oh, sorry about that. And Kelly, we had Trustee Harper second. So roll call, please.
Go again. Let's try this again. Trustee Barilla.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Weigert.
Yes.
Trustee Bierma.
Yes.
Trustee Lashley.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. Just a quick note before we adjourn. We postponed a couple of little things, and then we also talked about scheduling a meeting to discuss these ordinances that were brought up by the OEM team. And Trustee Lashley also mentioned discussing any planning we should do for drought and fire mitigation. So to the public, please stay tuned. We will provide notice as soon as we've scheduled that meeting along with the agenda for that meeting. At this point, I adjourn this meeting at 8:30 p.m. on May 26, 2020. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And that